Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome into Indiana Sports Beat Radio. John, the producer, right now sitting in for Jim Coyle as he is currently on a flight to, I guess, South Florida, wherever Montverde Academy is. I don't know specifically where Montverde
Central
is
Florida,
located,
yeah.
but Central Florida. See, I thought it was for
above.
some reason more of a Tampa area, but I guess I don't know my Florida geography very well. But
Up above
Jim
Orlando.
Coyle
I've
will
been
be
there a
with
few
us.
times. It's a beautiful campus up there. Very nice. Yeah.
Well, Jim will be joining us live from the airport once he gets landed. He may be here during the second segment, but you'll have me and Kevin and our guests as usual until then. We're going to start off talking a little bit about this Indiana basketball win from last night. We didn't have a post-game show because Jim was trying to get some extra sleep for his flight, but a lot of talk about as Indiana got off to probably their hottest start in a conference game this season for sure, but maybe in the past several years.
Well, yeah, 6 for 6 from three-point range. You can't do much better than that, right? And I mean, everything was
Absolutely.
clicking. But what was impressive to me for the first 20 minutes was just the defensive energy and the intensity that the starters came out with. You know, they held them in addition to the good shooting. Sometimes you make baskets and you lapse a little on defense, but they held them, first about 5+ minutes without a basket. The half-court defense, really the first basket came on a turnover and a run out. So the half-court defense was totally locked in. You saw at the end of the half, Jordan Geronimo closing out on, I think it was Miles Dredd and blocking a three-point shot. I mean, it was just beautiful. They had 8 blocks in the first half. But then they played the three-point line great. You're up 46-17 at halftime. Then second half, you get a little lull. You get that big lead. The intensity drops off a little bit. And, I thought that was a little disappointing. They let 8 to 16 from 3. They didn't handle the lead great, but they, credit to them for building that dominating of a lead and, taking care of business after the loss to Michigan. You didn't want a hangover effect. This team, 15-5, 6-4 in the Big Ten is set up pretty well, has not lost 2 straight all season. So that's, I think, a credit to the coaching staff and the players so far for bouncing back from adversity. I mean, if you remember last year, Archie Miller, that 6-game slide at the end of the season, we have not seen anything close to that so far, any indication that this team, would fall into that kind of a tailspin in the final 10 games. So I think it bodes really well here, but you got to keep kind of the pedal to the metal, go on the road against Maryland for a big game.
It's funny. You talk about the lineups and how that they were able to start off, the starting line was able to start off hot for once. And it seems like coming into this game, this was the game that everybody was talking about. Is Mike Woodson going to make a change in the starting lineup? And we didn't see that. Ended up boding well in his favor.
Yeah, no question. No. And he was adamant that he was going to stick with the starters because he said, even though, their plus minus the last 7 games was terrible, the fact that they were still 5-2 and the fact that, the second unit kind of was used to that role and came in and did a good job. Really a guy, you talk about the starting lineup and the starters, guy who's really played well the last 4 games right now, Xavier Johnson, 19 and 6 assists, played a lot more under control, 6 assists to 3 turnovers. I mean, he still has his moments here and there, but his athleticism, his ability to push the ball, score in transition cannot be denied. Indiana has not had a guard like that for a while. Someone that can do that, someone that can really beat you off the bounce. The way Xavier can, and he's starting to play like I said, a lot more under control, showing a little bit more of an ability to run the offense. You get others involved too. And Race Thompson had a big night, 18 points. Trace did his thing, 15 and 4 blocks. So you had 3 guys scoring double figures, which is pretty good. I thought it was good to see Tamar Bates too come off the bench, hit a couple of 3-pointers. He's a guy that's been struggling lately. It was good to see him kind of bounce back. So a lot of really good performances. I mean, 10 of 13 from 3. That's pretty darn good. That's their best percentage with 10 makes since the Kent State game back in the 2002 NCAA tournament.
And they were due, especially when you consider what happened with Michigan. It seemed like Michigan was 10 for 13 against them on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of turnabout. And you're going to get that sometimes in Big Ten play. Sometimes teams are going to show up, sometimes teams aren't. I think Penn State to me looked like a tired team, especially in the first half. Micah Shrewsbury really ripped into their energy level during one timeout. I remember he just got into it with Greg Lee because he felt like that, on his side of things, that Indiana was getting too many easy baskets. And maybe they were, but you got to credit Indiana for finishing and making those baskets. And Indiana's ball movement had something to do with that too. The ball was really hopping. It was crisp. 15-9 assist to turnover ratio is pretty good. It looks like they've solved the turnover issue. I think it's 6 of their last 8 games they've had 10 turnovers or less, which is well. And that you're not facing maybe the same kind of pressure defenses in the Big Ten that you're facing earlier in the season. Except for a team like Iowa that turned them over 23 times, right? Fran McCaffrey likes to press. But still, they're not making the unforced errors, which is really good.
Yes.
To see. I guess the one downer from the game was Rob Finney's injury in the first half. That really,
that's right.
What do we call it? A guy, you talk about a hard luck guy, right? He scores 20 against, Purdue. It's hoisted on the team's shoulders. You think he's really coming. And leg injury and talking to some people in the press room, after the game, you're hearing things that it might not be good for Rob. But we'll wait and see. The official diagnosis is coming out today. But it could be a fairly significant leg injury, lower leg injury for Rob Finney. And if so, that'd be a shame. And Christian Lander is not ready too. Everyone's crying for Christian Lander. And I think we found out the truth that really he hasn't been right physically. So it'll be interesting to see in the Maryland game if Lander is not available. I mean, how many minutes do you push Xavier Johnson? Who's the backup point guard?
He wouldn't even play Lander last night when Rob Finney went out. You saw he would keep Xavier out in the rest of the game.
Yeah, but apparently it's because Lander's the leg issue that he's had on and off. Apparently he's not right. It doesn't have to do with him being in the doghouse or buried on the bench. It has to do with the physical thing.
Which Michael Durr, we learned, was potentially in the doghouse last night, or at least coach's decision is what we were told.
Yeah, and no, I don't think that had anything to do with him being in the doghouse. I think that had to do with the fact that Penn State had 2 smaller bigs, and he gave those minutes to Geronimo, and it's a match. It's more of a matchup thing with him. If you have like a 7-footer on the floor as a starter or the backup, he's going to play it. But why would you put Michael Durr on the floor when the 2 starters are 6'8" and 6'7" when you can match up Geronimo with him? And Geronimo played very well last night. So
yes, he did. I mean, he looked like
yeah.
He showed lapses of Victor Oladipo and OG Anunoby last night. I know people make those comparisons all the time, but he hasn't showed that kind of consistency. And I think last night he really showed the potential of where he wants to be as he keeps developing.
Yeah. I'm a big Jordan Geronimo fan. I like what he does. He's starting to develop a little bit offensively. The big issue with him remains turnovers. He's got to be careful with the basketball. But I think he does a lot of things well to counterbalance that in terms of, especially the defense, the intensity, the energy. We saw what he did last year against Luka Garza. He's the guy that can, he can get out, he can guard you on the perimeter, he can body up a big guy. He plays bigger than 6'6" because he's got a 40-inch vertical leap. So there are a lot of positives with Jordan, and it's been good to see him kind of develop and thrive. And he's a really nice kid too. Really, just a good, well-mannered kid that's worked very hard to get to this point. So that you like to see that in a player. Work hard and his fruits be rewarded. And, I think he's a guy that probably be a 4-year guy. And, maybe next year, if some of the bigs leave, could, contend for a starting role.
Absolutely. So we're talking about the Indiana-Penn State game. Indiana has Maryland on the road this weekend. And then they have a week off before they play Illinois at home. What do you like, or what do you think about this upcoming stretch for the Hoosiers, Kevin?
Well, Maryland is playing well all of a sudden. They're Danny Manning is the interim coach. Obviously, they've had a lot of turmoil with Mark Turgeon resigning in December. And they started out 0-6 in the Big Ten, 0-5 in the Big Ten, excuse me, and they've won 3 of their last 4 league games. Looked really good against Rutgers the other night, hit 12 threes. I watched most of the second half of that game. And Eric Ayala and Fats Russell are 2 guards. They're quick. They can beat you off the bounce. They're really tough. Dante Scott is an inside guy. They've got another 7-footer coming off the bench. His name escapes me, but this is a game where we might see Michael Durr a little bit more because they've got some size. And they're going to be tough on the road. And apparently The travel on Friday might be a little wonky. I'm hearing something of a blizzard maybe, or a nor'easter coming through Friday and Saturday. I'm a little nervous because I'm flying down the game early Friday. Is my flight going to be delayed?
Man.
But also, Indiana, their travel getting in on Friday will be interesting to see how that gets impacted too. And are they going to, be able to get in a good rhythm or a shoot around or so forth? And it's by all accounts, it's a pretty good atmosphere down there in Maryland. They're, the basketball fans there are very knowledgeable. They get into it. Obviously, a lot of tradition and history there with, certainly, a lot of, going back to Lefty Driesell. So I'm really looking forward to, that trip, and we'll see what happens. And hey, there's Jim looking really nice there in the beautiful Orlando McCoy Airport.
I'm not sure he realized he removed himself.
Yes, he does.
I've been there many times. That's a nice background, Jim. I like that little sunshine there, a little turquoise behind you.
It's no accident.
Yes. You set yourself up pretty well.
There you go.
All right.
I said I'd put myself in, but getting set up, man.
Yep.
Making the move.
We're talking about the game last
night. Gee whiz, that's got to be like 12 hours ago. No, not 12.
Exactly. Less than that.
About 8 hours.
Exactly.
9 hours ago.
We were just chatting about the game and about Maryland coming up and about how the weather is going to be pretty wonky there, apparently, unlike where you are.
Well, it's not going to be great, but last night was a lot of good stuff. Well, Rob Finney, of course, that we'll talk about that. But from the bathroom, no, that's those are fish back there, Howie. That was incredible to see. That was the shooting, the response, and it shows you how the mental aspect of this game plays a huge part. They were zapped after that Purdue game. I've said it several times this week. I guarantee you, no professional gamblers were betting on Indiana against Michigan. There was just too much noise, too much stuff going against, just pulling them away. And like Mike Woodson says, and that's another thing, just stop, people, just stop. Let him coach. I haven't questioned a thing, and there's no reason to. Like the Christian Lander thing, that was driving me absolutely insane with people. And I'm like, why is it that people think that they know more than the coaches who are in practice with them every day, who knows what's going on? There is always a reason for something. There's a reason Michael Durr didn't play last night. It was a coach's decision. I don't know what that coach's decision was about, but there was a reason.
Yeah,
he didn't play.
I don't think it had anything to do with the doghouse, Jim. It had to do with the fact that Penn State starts 6'8", 6'7". He's not going to play a 7-footer in that kind of a game when he can give those minutes to Geronimo, who matches up better. I don't think it has anything to do with him being in the doghouse or anything like that. And as far as Lander, we learned the truth about Lander. His leg was bad. It didn't have anything to do with him being in the doghouse or getting.
I did not think he was in a doghouse. I don't know why people were thinking that. I'm telling you, let the guys who are paid to do that. I'm going to leave that coaching to them. I sent out a tweet last night that said Indiana fans really need to realize that, Indiana, they dropped an egg, a big old bomb egg against Michigan, but they bookended that and the Michigan performance was probably one of the worst performances in a couple of years, but they bookended that with the two best performances in 6 years or more. And so if you would have went to Indiana fans less than 1 year ago, 8 months ago, and said, hey, if next season I could tell you at this date you would be, what are they, 15 and
5, 6 and 4 in the Big Ten.
15 and 5, 6 and 4 in the Big Ten with a win over Purdue. They would be over the moon if you asked them that then. Now everybody's like, oh, well, they got to do this, got to do that.
Well,
and now I'm not going to say that I was not one of them that did not wonder why we weren't seeing some movement with the starting lineup, but Miller Kopp plays great defense. They don't have to rely on him for offense. They would like for him to be able to provide some of that, but he's out there playing great defense, and that's what he shows the coaches in practice every day.
And he gives you a shooting threat on the floor where that can open things up for Race and Trace too. The fact that, he is about a 36% 3-point shooter. Yeah, they haven't lost 2 in a row all season. I mentioned that earlier. Credit to players, also credit to coaching staff for, not getting them too high, not getting them too low, not overreacting or panicking to a loss. I think Woodson has them in a good mindset that way, that they don't dwell on things or get down on themselves.
Well, Sheryl Crow, not too high, a little too low.
Yeah, we've seen in the previous regime, right, about one loss turns into 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, right, of 10 or whatever.
13, 12 or 13.
I think a lot of that has to do with the coaches and the confidence they instill in these guys not to, dwell too much on the negative, which is something that, if I remember, I talked to Steve Risley. He talked a lot about that with Mike Woodson and his.
We got to take a quick break, Kevin. Let's come back and pick it back up. And you're listening to Indiana Sports Speed Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, where every Monday night at 7:05 you can catch Mike Woodson and Don Fisher for Inside Indiana Basketball. We're back with more Indiana Sports Speed Radio on this Thursday, right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
Was that your breakfast sandwich?
Dinner.
Oh, you didn't eat last night?
Man, I haven't
Egg
slept.
muffin?
I haven't eaten, and I haven't slept.
Wow. So you're running on a complete adrenaline right now.
Fumes, man.
I've got a 5 a.m. flight tomorrow. But I'm worried about the weather.
Will you land in D.C., I assume?
I land at like 7:30.
But in D.C.?
No, I'm going into Baltimore, BWI.
Oh, okay.
I'm renting a car.
Keegan's going.
Yeah,
Good for him.
Keegan was one that was telling me about the weather.
And he flying over too?
Yeah, but he's worried about the weather being a factor in flying.
What airline are you taking?
Southwest. Yep.
Southwest.
As long as you're not on Spirit, man, I would not want to be on them. And well,
Is that how you just flew?
I got a really cheap fare. It was like $210 round trip, direct both ways. But
Jim, how was your flight to where you're at right now? Solid. Did you fly out of Indy, I assume?
direct.
So I'm assuming you went straight to the airport after the game.
No,
No?
I actually decided to go back home and finish packing because I figured I thought I was going to be able to get 3 hours of sleep, but it didn't work out that way.
You're going to be able to sleep after the show?
At some point, but I got games today.
Oh, wow.
Right at it, man.
We should have Matt Taylor joining at some point, but if not, just keep talking basketball.
Well, we got plenty to talk about.
Yep.
What is the lineup?
Matt Taylor, Kyle Neddenriep, and then Chris Denari. But there's a break between Kyle and Chris.
Who's up next?
It's supposed to be Matt,
Okay.
but as usual, he's kind of hit or miss depending on his availability. So we'll see.
We got
Oh, yeah. You want me to get those clips? You sent me those
Absolutely.
this morning, I think. Let me grab those
Absolutely.
this segment. I'll grab those this segment for you. All right, here we go.
Of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. I'm coming to you from the Orlando International Airport. Kevin is from the studios at Golf Club at Eagle Point. Annex.
Yes.
What hat do you have on?
A little Adidas cap there.
You know, I gave Kevin a hat for his birthday, or for Christmas. Never wears it.
Well, the last time I wore a Mets cap, people gave me a hard time. So I'll wear it during baseball season.
So you're swayed? Your fandom is swayed by what others think when you wear their gear?
Yeah, I'll wear it, next time. But and the black goes with the, what I'm wearing right now. So, but I'll wear it, especially in the spring when I'm jonesing for baseball. They got to get this lockout figured out right now. But
Big Ten football doing away with divisions.
Yes.
I mean, the mere fact that they've mentioned it means it's happening.
Yeah.
They would not have mentioned it if it was not happening. It's happening, but they've got to get it figured out because I saw, I forget who had pointed it out, but last year, Michigan and Ohio State would have played in back-to-back weekends.
Yeah.
Now, that's a rare occurrence that teams that traditionally end the season with each other are going to be up there. There are two of them. I don't know of any other two, to be honest with you, because Wisconsin does not end with Iowa. I think Iowa ends with Minnesota and Wisconsin in the season together. Yeah. Paul Bunyan.
We saw what happened last year with rematches, right? Georgia, Alabama. Alabama got him the SEC title game, and then Georgia got him in the one the big one, the national title game. So I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I don't know if I like that much.
But getting rid of the divisions?
No, I'm talking about, but that potential for those rematches, right? Like Ohio State and Michigan playing back-to-back weeks like that, the way it works out. But, certainly you would see Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, those powers from the East. Michigan State would certainly be in favor of that realignment just because the divisions are so imbalanced. And it would help a program like Indiana, of course, who, faces that gauntlet year after year.
Well, someone who knows about that, Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. Brother, how are you?
What's going on? How we doing?
We're doing.
I'm just feeding the fish down here in Orlando on assignment. Kevin's at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios Annex.
What's the assignment in Orlando? How convenient you're in Orlando when it's 5 degrees in Indiana. How convenient.
Well, it's 50-something degrees here and raining.
What are you doing down there?
I will be in a gym for the next 3 days.
Oh, yeah? You watching some hoop?
Yes, sir. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Montverde Academy. They have a 3-day tournament. Their first game is tonight at 7:15 or 7:30. Play a team from Dallas. KJ Evans and Derek Queen.
Wow.
Also being recruited by Indiana, but which one is it? The KJ Evans. He's gone, man. He's already looking at Oregon. He went on a visit, and all he could talk about was, it's cool that they're real close to Nike. I really like Nike. I was like, well, that doesn't look too good for Indiana. They're an Adidas school, and he said Indiana was cold.
Well, he's not wrong about either.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if that's your decision making, you're out of here, brother.
So is that new? Is this new for you? Where you go and watch the recruits and see what they're all about?
Well, mostly during the summer. That would always happen in the summertime because there's all that going on. But trying to be full service, man.
I love it.
How are you doing?
Give us a full report. I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good. Just been watching some playoff football and keeping it
pretty low key. Been? I know the Colts aren't in it, so it's not as fun. But just from a fan's perspective, you're in it around it, man. But how the level of those games last week? That's just stupid, crazy good.
incredibly stupid, crazy good. You're exactly right. I mean, the Bills Chiefs game, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that's the best game I've ever seen in my life. And it's if you watch that game, you can't help but think, all right, what does this game, what do these two teams, what do they mean for the Colts? And obviously, the teams are well built, but it obviously starts with the quarterback play. And if you just extrapolate it further, if you look at it from the entire AFC perspective, I mean, Joe Burrow's 25, Patrick Mahomes is 26, Josh Allen's 25, Herbert with the Chargers, he's another young guy. I mean, these are teams that you're going to have to contend with now going forward. And, it's a shame because I think the Colts, shame in the sense that obviously I think the Colts had a playoff roster and they were good enough to make the postseason, but you are what your record says you are, and 9-8 just isn't good enough, and that's why it's such a disappointing end of the season and start of the off season with a lot of banter back and forth, and you hear from Frank Reich and Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, and they just have a hard time explaining exactly what went down, what happened, why it happened. It's just hard to kind of put your finger on why the last 2 weeks of the season were so unlike the previous 10 when they got to that point to make the playoffs, controlling their own destiny, and then unable to punch their ticket. But the Colts can compete with anybody, but obviously, it's hard to get past the inconsistency that they had at the quarterback position, really the last month of the season. And so that's what is kind of a head scratcher right now is what do you do at quarterback? And, no matter what you do, can you contend with the teams that have quarterback stability and young quarterback stability at that with Mahomes and Herbert and Burrow and those guys that I just mentioned, because they're not going anywhere. And those teams around those players have really built nice cores to complement what they have at quarterback. And the Colts have exactly the opposite of that. They've got a great roster, but just looking for stability at quarterback. And, we're running the risk here of having 6 different starting quarterbacks in six consecutive seasons with the Colts, at least on week 1 opening day of the season. So it's obviously a busy off season, and that's been dominating the chatter, to this point, and we're only 2 to 3 weeks in.
Kevin, was that the best game? I was going to ask you, is that the best game you've ever seen, or was it not as good as the Jets beating the Bills this year for you?
Yeah,
He's a Jets fan, by the way.
You're a real sit-down comedian. No, people talk a lot about Matt. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that early 1980s Dolphins Chargers playoff game with Kellen Winslow.
They had to carry him off the field.
Yeah, that was a
Absolutely.
classic playoff game. Matt, I'm curious though because I see 2 schools of thought with regards to the Colts offense, the passing offense. One is the quarterback play, and the other is not enough weapons, not enough receivers. I don't know what camp you fall in with regards to that. Do you feel like that there's enough, or I know T.Y. is getting older, Pittman has come on, but I'm just curious about your thoughts about the receiving core, the tight ends that they have, and if that should be upgraded a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's everything. I think everything has to be examined. Everything has to be looked at when, you have this elite running game and then you're just not able to complement. I mean, in theory, if you're trying to explain football from somebody from Mars, right, that's never seen a game, you should say the better your running game is, the more, the easier it is to throw the football because of, crowded boxes and play action and things like that. But it just wasn't true for the Colts. I mean, beyond Michael Pittman Jr., who had over 1,000 yards and sort of a breakout season for him in year 2, nobody else for the Colts had more than 384 receiving yards. Okay. It's the first time since 1988 for the Colts that they failed to produce 2 pass catchers with more than 400 yards. And they were the only team in the NFL this season to not have, I should say, 2 receivers or 2 pass catchers over 400 yards receiving. So it's definitely a concern. And Carson Wentz has to be more accurate. The that they have to be quicker. He has to be more decisive. He has to interpret the defense better. There's no question about that. But that being said, it's a two-way street as far as the passing game is concerned. And the Colts wide receivers, right? Here's the numbers. They rank 27th in receiving yards, 29th in YAC, which is yards after catch, 13th in receiving touchdown. right? And 27th in receiving first downs. And if you looked at the numbers from last year, it's the same guys for the most part catching the football, but last year all the numbers are, they're not top 5 numbers with Phillip Rivers, but they're considerably better than the numbers I just rattled off. And I think a big reason why is because Phillip was timing, he was quick rhythm, he got the ball out fast, he got the ball to the best playmakers quickly. Therefore, they can make something happen with it. Nyheim Hines was much more used in the passing game last year than he was this year. Yards after catch for Michael Pittman Jr. last year, more prolific than they were this season. So, speaking of Yak, you look at what they were able to accomplish this year, Jim. I mean, Pittman's Yak this season more than every other wide receiver combined for the Colts. So in 2021, no Colt finished in the top 25 in yards after catch. And that's certainly not the end-all, be-all, but what you would like to have happen is, turn a 5-yard gain into a 15-yard gain with run after the catch. So it's not as arduous to move the ball down the field and take some stress off of Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is unbelievable, and he is, in short order, proven that he is one of the best backs in the NFL. But at the end of the day, numbers and crowded boxes can take him away. I mean, it's hard to block 8 and 9 guys at the line of scrimmage. Jonathan Taylor is able to make yards happen when there are no yards to be made at times, but numbers, the math can beat a good running game or can slow it down at least. And that's where you have to complement it in the passing game on the outside, and that's where the Colts fell short. I mean, they only threw for over 200 yards twice in the last 8 games. And again, it's a head scratcher because in theory, the better you are at running the football, the easier it should be to complement that efficiency-wise in the passing game, and that just did not happen in the last half of the season for the Colts.
Yeah, there are roster changes or whatever that has to be made, but one of those I don't think is going to happen as a quarterback, but they need to add weapons to do exactly what you said, take stress off of Jonathan Taylor. Plus, if you're not providing other weapons, they're just going to key on him like you should and load the box up. And if you can't combat that, this is the NFL, man. I don't care if you're playing the Jaguars, days are going to get long and rough, as we've seen that no matter for lots of teams. But going forward next season, Jim Irsay he's really pissed. I mean, he is a great owner. You can just tell, but you can tell he's pissed that he wants to win, not in a really bad way, but in a good way, actually. I think he's tired of losing.
I mean, everybody is. I mean, and obviously he
pays a lot of people though.
No doubt about that. And it's been well chronicled. I mean, as soon as the season was over, as soon as they landed from Jacksonville, night of the game, that Sunday after the loss, he gathered Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and he just wanted to know, hey, what the heck just happened? This is not what any of us had envisioned. And he's still peeved a little bit, and he's talked about that. I mean, he's made videos, online with the Twitter social media videos. He's tweeted things out. I mean, just the other day,
probably should not stand in front of a running jet engine anymore. That's not great sound quality, and he may get sucked into the jet engine there.
Well, he says, you can see clearly in these divisional playoffs, the final 8 teams, you need a quarterback, you need an offense that can score you 30 on the regular, and you need a defense that can hold opponents down to under 30. So if you look at where the Colts are at right now, the Colts as a defense gave up only 21 points per game. Now, the defense isn't perfect, right? They need to get after the quarterback more efficiently, more consistently. They need more sacks. They need more pressures. They didn't win up front as often as they wanted to with their front 4 pass rush. At the early part of the season, they were still giving up a high completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. So it's not as if the defense is perfect and just needs to be left alone. But defensively, giving up only 21 points per game, primarily because they were so proficient at taking the football away, right? They had 33 takeaways on defense this season, which was second in the NFL. So that point total being at 21, a lot of that has to do with their consistency taking the football away. That helped the point total. But listen, you can win with giving up only 21 points per game in the NFL. That's a top 10 number. obviously the offense has to just be – no one is suggesting that Jonathan Taylor should not be the focal point of the offense. I'm not saying, you flip – you inverse where you are right now in terms of run versus pass. Right now they're 55% run. No one's saying that it should be a 55-60% pass offense next season when you have a guy like Jonathan Taylor. But what you have to do is you have to complement that better. You have to be more efficient. You have to win outside the numbers and take advantage of matchups. And again, that's where the Colts fell short primarily in the last 9 games of the season.
Absolutely. Before you joined us, not change the subject a little bit, we were talking about the fact that the Big Ten is most likely going to scrap divisions. The mere fact that they mentioned the possibility of it, I said, well, it's happening, or they wouldn't have mentioned it. So I think that's good. I hate these stupid divisions. Ever since the leaders and legends, it's never gotten better. They got rid of the stupid names, but let's put all the great teams on one side.
Right. How did they get there? Is there anything that has led to that, or are they going to change anything?
Well, the Big Ten East has won every Big Ten championship.
Well, what I'm saying is I read something to the effect that there's an alliance with the Pac-12 and the ACC that would impact scheduling.
Well, that's part of the other deal. They're looking at potentially going back to 8 games versus 9, which is what the SEC and the ACC play, which allows them 4 non-conference games you set up. So most teams generally set up 4 winter games. But now with that alliance, Kevin, you're going to be looking at Indiana playing potentially UCLA or Notre Dame. Well, they already have Notre Dame on the schedule, but Clemson. I saw someone earlier say, they'll have Clemson and USC on the schedule.
The ACC crossover would be 1 ACC team and 1 Pac-12 team and 8 conference games. So maybe Miami, right? Go down to we would all be in favor of that. Florida State and Tallahassee. But I think it bodes well for a school like Indiana again because, as I mentioned before, they face that gauntlet every year. Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State.
Right.
Now you can maybe break it up some seasons where you play some more teams from the old West Division, right? You can play, Iowa, or you can play Nebraska, who's struggling now, or you can play different schools throughout the course of that. So I think it's a good thing for the Hoosiers. Yeah.
It would be nice to know going into a season that the best you can do is finish 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten East. So it would be nice. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, right? The Indiana's probably in all likelihood probably going to finish, middle of the pack in a non-division Big Ten schedule. But it would be nice to know going into a season that there's at least a chance that we can do better than 3rd or 4th place in the division in which we play. But let me ask you this: would the winners, with the 2 teams that play in the conference championship game, go to the championship game based solely on conference record or overall record?
I don't think have they determined that yet, have they, Kevin?
No, I don't think so. I think that would be something that would need to be sorted out. But
that seems to me.
You would think it would be conference record.
Would tell you, yes.
Yeah, common sense would tell you that. That would be conference record.
But now that should not mean that the team that plays in the championship game and loses has that count against them. So that should not knock them down any further. But what's coming up next for you, Matt? What do you do in the off season? You just lay around and don't do a thing, don't you? Do you?
Yeah, I just sit around, watch Netflix, and order DoorDash.
You got Ozark, man. You got Ozark.
Yeah.
No, there's still plenty to do. We stay busy with podcasts and radio shows. And
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's obviously there's 2. I always say there's 2 different speeds to it. There's in-season breakneck speed, and then off-season
regular, like what everybody else do.
Yeah,
what everyone else's normal is.
Right, 9 to 5. So yeah, it's good to kind of have the weekends back. I always say my 2 favorite days of the year are the first day of the season, week 1, and then the last day of the season, because then you can kind of catch up on life and visit with family, have the weekends back, and just catch up on everything that you neglected for 7 or 8 months.
I hear it, brother. Well, I can't thank you enough. As always, go get you some weekend rest.
Will do. All right, enjoy Orlando, my man. Tell Mickey Mouse I said hello.
This is the closest I've ever been to Disney World. I was thinking about that earlier. Closest I'll ever be as well, probably.
You got to
Thanks,
slide
Matt.
over. All right,
Appreciate
guys.
you,
Do well.
brother. Have a great one. Hey, make sure we're brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. If you're looking for a new vehicle, no better place to go than Andy Moore Honda. They've got the best deals, whether it's Civics, Accords, HRVs, CRVs. They've got 0.9% financing, 1.9% financing, $0 down. Great deals. Go check out Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Sports on television.
I wonder if there's any way I could get my wireless headphones to work with my laptop.
We've got Kyle in here.
Good morning, Kyle.
Detroit, Rock City.
Morning.
I'm down in headed to Mount Verde.
I was gonna say you look like you got an aquarium behind you or something there.
Yeah, I'm still at the airport. It's actually
One of the
fake.
commenters
They did
said
have one
live
over there, and I
from
was going to
Jim's
try to
bathroom.
set up in front of the aquarium, but everybody's freaking sleeping around. I'm going, damn, this is the nicest part of the whole airport, and everybody's sleeping around it. I'm like, get out of here, you bums. Man, he causing a ruckus up there in the championship game, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, he just dipped out. Maybe he'll have to reconnect.
Yeah, pissed him off. No, I have Skechers closing.
I think that just nobody buys Skechers.
It's 9:15. He's already going for breakfast, I guess. He
I
just
must have hit something there.
Yeah. He said it must have pissed him off.
no. Was it worse than it? I mean, it seemed like it was kind of bad, but then it seemed like people were not making a big deal out of it.
I mean, there was no punches thrown or anything like that. It was, it was kind of a lot of talking, and then the assistant coaches made it worse by them talking trash to each other and having to be held back, and a lot of bluster, but no real, fight or anything. It wasn't even a fight. It was I don't even know what you call it, an incident.
An incident. Oh, man. It's kind of a shakeup, too, a little bit up at the top. Chesterton. Oh, yeah, Chesterton. Matt Nover, right?
Yeah.
Matthew Nover. Kevin went to Chesterton, who is Kyle's number one team right now. They're undefeated. They're like due north of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Or is it?
It's north. I don't know if it's exactly north, but yeah, it's northwest.
Up by Kokomo, or
Do you know the way? Or Kokomo, Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to take you to
All right, here we go.
Aruba. Honda pilots are eligible for $0 down and 0.9% financing over 48 months. And you can always get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's number one Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Thursday. I hope it's warm where you are, because it's not where anyone I know is. Kyle Neddenriep joins us from the Indy Star. Luckily, it's basketball season, because it's too daggone cold outside to do anything else.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it now. So, yeah, I think it's supposed to warm up a little bit next week, but feels like basketball season right now.
Yeah, and things are getting good and heated, and as long as things don't come to fisticuffs, I like a little spunk. We had some spunk in the city championship game the other night, but you said on the offer no punches were thrown, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where, it's kind of how Twitter is, where you have people on, we're not going to tolerate this and this is terrible. And then on the other side was saying, well, this is not a big deal at all. This is nothing. So, the polarization of everything kind of comes to fruition in a situation like this. But, the IHSA is going to look at it and to kind of set it up. It was a sectional or the city championship between Tech and Cathedral on Monday night, and big rivals, big players who know each other, and a lot of kind of trash talking throughout the game. That played once already this year, and 33 seconds left. There was an intentional foul on Tech. Reggie Bass kind of grabbed Jackson Edwards as he was going to the basket. Not the most malicious thing I've ever seen in my life by any means, but the momentum kind of takes you as you're driving in for a basket. And Edwards goes to the floor. May have been shoved slightly by Bass as he was going to the floor. Hard to tell. And then, Tayshawn Comer comes up from behind, kind of shoves Bass, not to the floor, but just kind of as a teammate, you kind of expect maybe to see that. And then, it was pretty much over at that point, other than talking. The refs got in between them. It was kind of calming down. And then, unfortunately, the assistant coaches started, ramped it up again. And then that's when the referee, Chris Shields, who I've known him for years, he stopped the game, told both teams go back to your locker rooms. And, there was no net cutting ceremony, no, trophy presentation, no nothing. It was just the end of the game. And, I think that's where it ended. I think it was a good decision, honestly, by the referee to just, what good could happen in the last 33 seconds at that point. And, the game was essentially over. Now, it didn't, Jason Delaney, the Cathedral coach, called it embarrassing, and I would agree with that assessment. To not be able to finish a city championship, is kind of embarrassing. But, again, I think life is the gray area. I mean, what is the punishment supposed to be for something like this? I think you probably and the IHSA is meeting with both schools today, officially. And I know Chris Shields went into the IHSA and went over the situation with them. I think on what is today? I think it was Tuesday. To kind of go over it. None of the players left the bench area who were on the bench. Like I said, there was no punches thrown. To even call it a fight would be wrong. It was more of I don't even know what, just an
event,
a situation, whatever.
A fracas.
That works. So I don't know. It's not we've seen in the past, Ben Davis and Pike girls a few years ago, that was a full-scale melee fight on the court. Both teams were, suspended for the rest of the season. Griffith and Hammond had the similar situation, I think 6 years ago, if I remember right. And, they were suspended for the season, although Griffith was able to come back through a court injunction and play and then make it to the state championship game, which was quite a story. But this is nothing that rises to that level, and I would think it'd be an overreach to suspend the teams or anything like that. But you're walking on thin ice. And to me, the biggest takeaway I had was like, it felt like it was kind of a tinderbox about ready to explode. And thank God nothing happened to that extent. But it was walking the line way too close to something like one more dumb decision could have led to both these very talented teams being, kicked out of the tournament or something. And I think that's where, talking to Jason Delaney and Damon Turner, the Tech coach, it's like, we can't allow that to spill over and, put ourselves in that situation. So, because
Cathedral's got a lot of players that depend on that for college guys. Well, there's so many ways you could see now, but
they could win a state championship.
I was going to say they're probably picked. They could be the best team in the state.
Yeah, and Tech could too. I mean, they could. If you can get out of that sectional, you get a chance to really do some damage. So, why put yourself in that situation? I think so. To me, it's not like, well, this is nothing. It's something. But it's also not. I think somebody on Twitter, and I shouldn't engage, but it's just like, why are we justifying this? And it's like, well, who's just we can say it's not right, but then we can't sit here and outrage and then not have any solution, to what or any kind of context to what actually happened, So It's frustrating that people just it seems like there's a willful blindness to any kind of context. It's just like, this is what I'm going to say in my 160 characters, and that's it. That's the bottom line. That's it. And I get it. It's part of it, but it's more layered sometimes than people want it to make it out to be. And you don't just throw the whole team out for something like that. Or I do think the coaches maybe it's the head coaches who need to bear the brunt because they're in charge of their assistants. I don't know, but there needs to be some sort of I think for the assistant coaches who were ramping this thing up. I mean, there needs to be
failure to monitor the program.
Yeah, I mean, and not, again, it's not like it wasn't a melee, but yeah, I mean, get your guys under control. That shouldn't.
You can't have it in high school. You just can't have that stuff in high school now.
No, and if you're doing that, what's it say to your players? If your assistants are needing to be held back and yelling and screaming at each other, then there's a problem. So yeah, deal with that angle, I think. But we'll see what the HSA says. But I can't believe there will be too drastic of punishments. I don't think that would fit the situation.
Kevin, where do you sit on shot clock in high school basketball?
I'd like it. I'd like to see it because I think it would develop timing for college. I think it would get the players more ready for the shot clock. But it is interesting strategy. I guess there's some old hardliners. I remember I was talking to a guy, I forget the reporter in Bedford, a longtime reporter who didn't like it. But, the whole stall ball idea, the four corners, right? Dean Smith back in the day.
See, I don't understand why anybody doesn't like it. It's like, stop. Do you like the cars of today, or do you like the cars 30 years ago that had nothing in them? It's life goes on and life gets better, and that's just part of it. That's part of the game now. And there was a deal on Twitter the other day, and I think I was Kyle's that I saw, but that was not the whole game. And I think that's kind of like people reading headlines and not reading stories and jumping to conclusions off the headline. Although they did hold the ball in that game between two powers of number one or the 1 and 2 A classes, but that was only for like a total of 3 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was the last. According to Rick Semler, who he posted, he was there at the game, and he said, I think the last 2:30 of the, I can't remember which quarters it was, but 2:30 of one quarter and then 1:30 of another quarter. So it was about 4 minutes total. And I guess I come down, I prefer a shot clock. I lean that direction. But I don't, like I said, I don't cover games that are where people are doing that ever.
They're not that many.
Very, very rarely. I mean,
but I blame the defense. Why did the defense not go out on the ball? You can force the situation.
Well, I think so. And people kind of went that direction with it too. But yeah, I guess if you're North Davies in that situation, it's a 2-point game. You're playing a team that's really talented in Linton Stockton, who may have more talent than you. If they're content, making it a 2-point game and just holding the ball, I don't really, it's like, I put more blame on the offense, I guess, because it's like, if you're that talented, if you're Linton Stockton, just play. I mean, it's a regular season game too. So, I mean, it's not like I agree with Kevin. I think, with what Kevin was saying about, I don't mind it in the tournament. If you're a 50-point underdog, why would you try to run with another team that's way better than? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You're going to do whatever you can do to try to win the game. So if that's holding the ball and making the game shorter, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But in the regular season, especially with two teams that are that talented, I don't really understand the tactic there. And you have a full house, full house. People want to come be entertained. It's a basketball, it's entertainment. It's you got great athletes. What are we doing? You
can make it 45 seconds too. Maybe that's a compromise too. That way you can hold it a little bit. And that's what the college game used to be, right? 45 seconds, and then it went down to 30. That would be a good number, I think, for the high school level.
I agree. 45 to me is probably the number to do. And there's lots of different. I talked to a coach years ago about this, and he said, and I never thought about that, but it's like, why we should credit the defense for being able to guard for that long, and give them a reward. If you can guard for 45 seconds and not give up a basket or a shot or whatever, I mean, you should be rewarded. I actually agree with that. I think that makes sense. And like I said, I prefer really the biggest situation to me is like when a team is trailing by 10 with 5 minutes left, and your only tactic now is to get a steal or foul, and with the shot clock, it at least kind of makes the team play on offense a little bit. You can't just kind of work your offense around. You have to actually put up a shot. So to me, that's the biggest. It's not necessarily a stall ball or holding the ball. It's the late game fourth quarter situations.
Shot clock or elam ending.
I do like that, but that's not even would never happen.
We had Mo Creek was on with this. It was last week or this week, I can't remember, but because he plays in the TBT a lot, and I asked him, I said, "How do you like playing in the games that have the elam ending?" And he likes it. He said it's if you're trailing, otherwise you'd have to do fouling, blah blah blah. Man, you just got to play. And I think it is kind of cool because it's different. I don't have I'm not saying it should be in every league and every division, but I like that it's out there.
Yeah, I've enjoyed watching it the times I have. I think it makes it keeps you interested in the game till the very end. I mean, and it's not a free throw fest, or you're not spending so much time at the end of the game that seems sort of irrelevant.
You would never have Houston, NC State in '83 if you had the elam ending, though. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Jimmy Valvano purposely fouling so that you could get the Lorenzo Charles ending on the Wittenberg shot, right?
Yeah, and that's why that, and especially at the high school level, we'll never see anything like that, and I don't think probably at any real level of basketball. But it's a nice change up. I mean, maybe there's a way to incorporate it into some, something. Here and there, I think would be fun, but I don't think that's probably ever will happen for real majority of basketball.
Well, your day is probably going better than Chris Denari's. He joins us later, and I'm maybe trying to stall before he comes on after having to talk to him today after the beatdown the Pacers took last night. Holy crap! Charlotte set a franchise record for points scored, and they did it on the road at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I guess at this point, every loss gets you a better draft position potentially. So there's that silver lining to it.
What's coming up next for you, Kyle?
I'm actually, I've got a couple different things coming up. I'm actually talking to Paul Neidig of the IHSA here later this morning about some different things, and we'll get some, I think, some closure on this Tech Cathedral thing, and hopefully move forward from that. I've got some surprise teams coming, I think, later this afternoon that will run, and lots. I have Ben Davis Carmel tomorrow night for high school basketball, so that'll be potentially the last. Both teams are undefeated in the MIC, so Carmel trying to win the MIC for the last time they're in it.
Cal Neddenriep from Indy Star. Be a subscriber. Make sure you give him a follow. Keep up with all that's going on in Indiana high school basketball around the state, man. Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
You betcha. Hey, we're back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. Make sure if you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, dig up Cheryl Sizemore, and you could use her 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between you getting the home you want and not. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Start the new year out. Oh, I'm going to crash.
You got an hour left. Make sure use either this segment or
this segment
after Chris to do more basketball, so I can get a good clip from it. Because
when does Chris come on? Is there a whole segment after him?
Yeah, there's Chris, and then there's one more.
What do you have, Kevin?
I'm just thinking, I'm working on something on Xavier Johnson for the weekend, and obviously we can talk about that, a little bit about his play.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, it feeds right into what we'll be talking about.
We can talk about the Maryland game a little bit,
You know what? We'll save. Yeah, we'll do the clips and stuff.
Oh, and I've
for
got
the
your
next
clips
segment.
too. I forgot I have the clips. I got those pulled up whenever you want.
I thought that's what we were just talking about.
No. I meant just to talk in general, to have a clip for YouTube. That's what I meant to say, if I didn't say that correctly. A basketball clip for YouTube from the show.
Holy smokes. Calgon, take me away.
Another one.
Another one.
I love that clip. Quinn Buckner. I didn't realize the Pacers are 17-32.
It's ridiculous how bad they are compared to where, how more like the fall from grace they've had over the past couple of years.
Well, this is Carlisle's first season. I mean, what?
But you know what?
Is it just rebuilding?
They're going to get a great draft pick out of it.
Yeah, that's true. Did they keep Lance Stevenson, or did they let him go?
Haven't they never had a lottery pick?
Ever? Was Paul George not a lottery pick?
There's something. I can't remember, but there's something.
Quick. Kevin Pritchard has to be living on borrowed time, I would think. Because he's the one that
did not have one last year. No, they were the tournament.
Did you lend him the time?
Yeah, maybe I did.
Their last lottery pick was Miles Turner in 2015.
Ross is saying that it appears there's no plan in the Big Ten to reschedule missed games from COVID. Well, how the hell are you going to do that when you have someone like Michigan who missed
10 seconds?
One, Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me. Both of us were in the Simon Scott Assembly Hall last night as Indiana absolutely dismantled Penn State, a team they lost to by a bucket on the road, Kevin. But last night they came out like Mike Woodson beat them before the game. I mean, it was a start of epic proportions. When Race Thompson hit that three and it looked smooth, I was like, oh, hell. And it was just an onslaught from there. I think they hit their first 6
3-point shots. 10 of 13, too, for the game, which is, I think I mentioned it before, that was their best with 10 makes since the Kent State game back in 2002, 20 years ago.
I was at that game in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp Arena.
Yeah.
Dane Fife was on that squad.
That's true.
AJ Moyer, friend of the show. Tom Coverdale, George Leach.
Yep.
Jeff Newton.
20 years since Indiana's last Final Four appearance. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll change soon. Indiana is getting the players they need. People have been, that leave it alone. They're getting the players they need. Mike Woodson knows what he's doing. All the coaches know what they're doing. They're doing a hell of a job. Look at this season over last, people. You wanted results. You got results. You've got a team that is on track to make the NCAA tournament and not just to squeak in. And I hate being one of those woulda, coulda, shouldas. Kevin, this team could be legitimately be another team that is fighting for the Big Ten title right now with a couple of simple, the Wisconsin miscue and losing at Penn State.
They'd be 8-2 instead.
They would be freaking in the mix.
Progress. Yeah, they're making progress. But, don't forget, too, it works both ways. The Purdue game, the finishing shot, and so forth and everything. They've had a few squeakers go their way, too, in the league. That one stands out to me off the top of my head. But they've been very good at home. Listen, 13-1 at home, and they haven't lost back-to-back games yet. And it's progress, I think. That's the main thing, is that you're seeing tangible progress on the floor, and you're seeing, look at a guy like Xavier Johnson, much maligned earlier in the season, and now he's playing very good basketball. So you're seeing guys improve and get better within the system. I think you'd like to see Parker Stewart find his footing a little bit here this last month of the season too. Maybe if he can get on a flurry or hit a couple of threes, that would mean a lot. Race Thompson is getting better every game,
and
season.
You don't know how scary of a statement that is, because he started out pretty damn good. He started out extraordinarily consistent, reliable.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Mike Woodson has given him the freedom, bring the ball up the
every
court,
game.
3-pointers. Yeah. He's given him the freedom to expand his game.
And again, you've got to give Mike Woodson that credit. I mean, I know people, me included, you see Race Thompson line up for a three, and you're just like, dude, he's shooting 10%, man. And he's still. But you know what? I guess if that tide turns, and maybe from this point at the end of the year, he shoots 25%.
Yeah.
And he's dragging bigs out away from the paint along the way, and that helps in other ways. I mean, there's so many different ways that can help stretching the floor, but the confidence he's gaining is scary. This is going to sound nuts, but he's a more well-rounded player than Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I covered plenty of Florida teams back in the day. Matt Bonner, Eric Murphy. So stretch four is a valuable weapon. A guy that's 6'9", 6'10", that can go out there and shoot like that and shoot 35, 40% from three, completely opens up the floor. Gives you so much more that you can do driving in the paint, driving the basket. And I think that's what Mike Woodson wants to develop, which is why he's giving, Race a little freedom. Now, Race is not quite that threat yet, but I think down the road in recruiting, you are going to see Mike Woodson and that program go after those guys, those power forwards that can shoot from three. And it just, and this is the modern game. This is the game that, and Woodson knows that from coaching in the NBA. This is where the game is headed, where you need to have that 6'9", 6'10" guy go out, step out, and shoot some threes, if for no other reason than to open things up for offensive rebound and open up the court.
Hunter Dickinson comes to mind pretty quickly.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, some of what you saw what he could do in that Michigan game, and it's Jalen Smith of Maryland. Was a guy a couple of years ago, if you remember, and he was a lottery pick, and that's why, for the life of me, I feel bad for Trayce, but had Trayce been able to develop that skill, he'd be out in the NBA, be making millions of dollars right now. But he has not been able to develop that skill yet for whatever reason. He's still pretty much a back to the basket player in the post.
I had this discussion a little bit yesterday. I think it was. I don't know how in the world he could be considered a surefire leaving to go to the NBA. He is not locked in on a second round of the mocks. He's on the bubble of that. Now, could that change? Sure. But he's not going to you're not going to jump very high. And so the best he's going to would be at the bottom of the second round. That's not a good place. That's not a good.
Yeah. And not only that, but
not for him.
He could make NIL money next year. He could team up with Hood Schifino, which would make his life infinitely easier. I think that there's a lot to be said for him to come back for his senior year. Put dents in the record book. Become an all-time Indiana legend, and finish what he started. I think you take a look at Luka Garza as a 4-year player, and there are plenty of guys in the Big Ten that have done it, and have done pretty well for themselves. So I think it'll be an interesting decision again for Trayce in the offseason. But he strikes me as the kind of kid that likes college too. So
it would definitely help Indiana and be to their benefit. But I truly believe it would help Trayce Jackson-Davis because his stock is just not that high as an NBA pick right now, and I don't know that changes because of what we've talked about. And until that does, now I'm not in the school that people say, "Oh, people's not ready." Let me tell you who decides a player's ready: the NBA. If they decide he's ready, he's freaking ready. I don't care what they say. He may not be ready to play today. He may be to play tomorrow, but it doesn't matter. If they want to draft a guy because they think he has the potential and they think that they can provide a hell of a lot more development for him when he doesn't have to worry about school, this, that, and the other thing, they're going to, then they're ready. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're not middle or higher on that second round, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, no guaranteed money in that contract. One thing Trace is doing very well, and one area where he's really expanded his game is protecting the rim. 4 blocks last night. He's among the Big Ten leaders in block shots. I think he and EJ Liddell are right there. You got to give him credit. I think that's one area where, and he seems like he's in, just much better shape all around. His stamina and his ability to sustain this year is much better than last year, and he's alluded to that. But you would like to see him, just develop a little more perimeter skills, some face-up skills, where he can, take a big off the dribble too. Take him out and take him off the dribble, because sometimes, like even last night, a guy like Harar is not the best matchup for him. Kofi Coburn, who's going to be coming down in a couple of weeks, not the best matchup for him because bigger, more physical. And it shows sometimes for him being a back to the basket guy at 6'9", 245 when you're going up against 7 foot 280, which is what Big Kofi is.
Matt says that Romeo was not ready and was drafted, and again, he was not ready by the fans' standards.
Yeah.
He was ready by the NBA standards because he was drafted, and he's still in the NBA. So he was ready, in my opinion. He was ready. He was ready for them.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard for people to disassociate their opinion on that when it's someone that plays for a team that they follow.
Yeah, and guards, I think are a little different. And Romeo had good size, right? How tall was he?
6'5"?
Yeah, 6'5". That's an NBA size for a guard. Explosive ability. Now, didn't shoot the ball well, right? Had the thumb problem, what have you. But
that thumb.
I
don't. That thumb is and that's another great example. The first thing the Celtics did was, and I've said this 1,000 times, they taped a ping pong paddle to his left hand and made him shoot the ball. Right. So they worked on him, and it made him a better shooter. But so there you go. Speaking of becoming better shooters, Xavier Johnson. Let's talk about him and what he has done over the last 3 games, because I talked about, even though Indiana had a horrible performance against Michigan in the middle, those other 2 games around that, their 2 best performances in 6 years, and Xavier Johnson is the linchpin of that. He has averaged, I ran the numbers last night, 17 points, was 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists to 1.5 turnovers over his last 3 games. That's your point guard. There is not a coach in America that would come running for if it said, "Hey, I got to get." There's not a coach in America that would not take that guy.
Yeah, again, and the value of having a scoring point guard too, a guy that can create for others and create for himself. And I think we've seen that the last few games, and playing a lot more under control too. And listen, the Indiana fans were hard on him early in the season for that, when he maybe wasn't necessarily playing under control.
He's finding his way, man.
I agree. And again, that's, Mike Woodson backing him up, telling the fans not to boo him. Obviously that, I think that did a lot for his confidence and his belief in Xavier. And I think Mike knows what he has in Xavier in terms of, his ability and the fact that he can be that dynamic kind of point guard that can score. And it took him a while to get going, but he's going now, and he's going back to Maryland. He's going back to DC, which is in his neck of the woods, Arlington, Virginia. So I'm sure he's going to be pretty motivated on Saturday to, maybe put on a good show in front of family and friends. Sometimes that works both ways. Sometimes guys get psyched out in those homecoming games, but I think that will be nice for him coming in off a high to be able to go home and, play in front of his family and friends that will probably be coming into Maryland to see him play.
How many players this year have we heard talk about Mike Woodson? Rob Fennessy is in his corner. He is backing these players up. They know that is such a departure for what they were dealing with before. You can see it on their faces. You can see it on the floor. You can see it before the games. And I'm watching them warm up. Christian Lander's out there. He's happy as he can be. If the fans would stay out of it, he's happy as he can be. Just let it go. They've got it covered. But they're happy. They're fun. They're having fun. They enjoy each other. And Mike Woodson is a big part of that, of making it all okay for those guys.
Yeah, and I think he cracks the whip when he has to in practice, certainly. I don't think he's a complete softie, but I think he's a guy who, instills confidence in his players and gets them to believe in themselves. And a guy who moves on, you know what I mean? You make a mistake in basketball, it's going to happen. You teach it, and then you move on, and you look forward to the next game and not really dwell on it. And I think that's who he was as a player. From talking to his former players last fall when I did that story on him, and I think that's who he is as a coach too. And I think it's paying dividends right now. Now you got 10 games to go. You can't lay an egg here in these last 10 games, right? You gotta keep that momentum going. And the Big Ten is grind, and it's a bear. And we will see how this Fennessy injury, A, how long-term it is, and B, how it affects rotations going forward in terms of, and the perimeter defense, because Rob is one of the defenders.
The last segment, we've got some clips to play for Rob Fennessy and Coach from last night. We'll get back to that. Coming up next, our good friend Chris Denari is going to join us, as bad as he may not want to today, but we're going to make him anyway. He will be back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat. Brought to you by our friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic, Dr. Steve Green and Brian Evans, former IU basketball players. Give them a ring if you're having problems getting through the night, sleeping. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
Oh, it's a rough one today, Chris.
Yeah, I'm here through thick or thin.
You're a trooper.
The snow is falling in Bloomington, by the way. We got a little bad
dusting. An inch. Really?
Yeah, maybe half an inch. It's the parking lot is getting white here. So
look at Jim getting out of the state right on time.
I know.
See, the thing is, I got to come back to it.
Where are you there? Jim?
Till Sunday morning.
Where are you?
I'm at Orlando Airport right now, but I'm going to Montverde, which is slightly northwest of here.
Okay.
Academy. It's Montverde Academy. Jalen Hood-Schifino, IU commit, plays there, and then there's two other kids that they're recruiting. One of them, I can already tell they've got no shot at, but they've got a tournament this weekend, teams from Dallas and stuff like that. So coming down to get talk to those three guys, the coaches, and get some highlights and this, that, and the other thing.
Yep.
But I'm not seeing any beaches, folks. No sand, and it's in the 50s and raining. So
yeah.
I'm not on any kind of
that nice background.
Yeah, our oldest son lives in Myrtle Beach, and I think they had ice last week.
That's nuts, man. I mean, my family lives in the Charlotte area, and I remember growing up, they never – it's like 40s is cold for them, man. It was.
Yeah, I said last night. So last Thursday, the Pacers beat Golden State with an undermanned team. Sunday, Charlotte plays at home to Atlanta. The Hawks had lost 10 straight at home. Charlotte hits 4 of 36 from 3. Last night, they hit 24.
I hope you bring that up when we get going, because it doesn't matter the level. that's Indiana, and the same. You can look at Indiana's last 3 games and do the same thing.
Right.
They killed it last night. The game before that, they couldn't hit water from a boat.
Yeah. Even the Purdue game, there were 20, if not for Finney. Nobody else hit threes in that game. So,
all right, here we go.
Last night, they're 10 of 13.
months. And you can always get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back on this Thursday. Jim Coyle with you as always. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers joining me as well, and our good friend Chris Denari, voice of the Indiana Pacers. That's funny. Hey, before we get going, I saw that Mr. Boyle went off apparently last night. I haven't read or seen what it was, but I think he was chastising the Pacers maybe from what it seemed. I've only seen the headline. I haven't been able to read it yet.
Yeah,
it sounded like he gave him what for.
Yeah, I mean it was not a pretty sight. There's no question about that. When you give up 158, most ever in franchise history, Charlotte made 24 threes. I mean, there's not much you can say. What's the odd thing is it was 71-70 at halftime. It was a 1-point game.
That is mind-boggling.
But a couple of things, and I don't know if it plays into it at all, but a year ago in the play-in, remember the NBA went to a play-in, and the Pacers and the Hornets met in the first game of the play-in at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And the Pacers beat the Hornets 144-117. And you wonder, even though they're pro athletes and even though it's a long season, you wonder if there are some memories about that, because Ron Norred, who is now an assistant coach with the Pacers, he was with Charlotte last year. When those two teams met in the first game of the season, he said, absolutely, those guys remember. And so you just wonder how much that plays into it. But I'll leave you with this. This is why, to me, sports, and we were talking about this off air. I mean, to me, it's the greatest reality television because you don't know what's going to happen. Last Thursday, we were doing this program, and the Pacers had just beaten the Lakers. And then that night, with the same undermanned crew, less Karis LeVert, they win at Golden State, despite Steph Curry scoring 39.
That's almost an impossibility. What was the spread in that game? Do you happen to know?
I think it was 16. I mean, that was what I was told after the game.
It's just crazy.
I think it was the largest, one of those. I don't get into all those numbers, but it was one of the largest wins against the spread, I guess. But go back to Sunday in Charlotte. Atlanta, who had lost 10 straight home games at a point just a week ago, they beat Charlotte, and the Hornets go 4 for 36 from three-point range. 4 for 36 at home from three-point range. And then last night, they make 24. They got a guy, Kelly Oubre, that made 10. So, yeah, honestly, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch the game to see even what I said in the second half because I have no idea.
Kevin, this sounds like a team that we've been covering, the Indiana Hoosiers, just in their last 3 games because they go from they went on the road and ended an 0-8 road streak at Nebraska, but then they come home and end that 0-9 streak against Purdue in what was the most emotional win probably in over 6-7 years. Electric environment at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, but it drained them because the Michigan game days later, even the crowd wasn't the same, and the players definitely were not either, as they just were walking like zombies and got thrashed, and then come out last night and looked like they were playing some junior high team. It was 42-17 or something.
46-17, yeah. Biggest biggest lead for Big Ten games since 2016.
But it's the same thing. It's these swings. How do you have such gigantic swings? I mean, it doesn't even matter the level that we're talking about different levels, but it's a gigantic swing.
You could say 18 to 21-year-olds, right, for college, but for pro, they're professionals. But the NBA game is tilting younger too, so maybe there's an explanation for that too, because you have so many young players on the floor that you're up and down, and certainly I think in both instances too, there's probably the travel element of it, the games back to back, and so forth. And Indiana certainly had a tight schedule the last week with 3 games. Don't forget that Michigan game was their 3rd game in a week, and they had gone to Nebraska and had the emotional game against Purdue. Had a little more rest for the Penn State game. And,
I'm not so much about Indiana, just the fact that teams can just have those swings that are so mind-numbing. Yeah. And like I said, and it doesn't matter which daggone level we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I explained, like I said, I think, sometimes sometimes you're playing your 3rd game in a week, and that has to do with it, and you're drained physically and emotionally. I think that's a factor too. It's the scheduling sometimes.
Yeah, we've always said that for in the NBA, the first game back from a long road trip is one of the most difficult you'll face, especially for the Pacers, who today go right back out on the road and play tomorrow at Oklahoma City and Dallas. So basically, if you think about it, they left. I got to look at the schedule.
So they had a Western swing. Now they got a mini Western swing.
So they left on Sunday the 16th and basically got back very early in the morning on Tuesday the 25th. Play a game last night and then go right back to the road. So really what they say in the NBA is you almost have to treat last night like a road game, because you're basically going to be on the road for about 2 straight weeks. Now, again, that's their job, right? That's what they're paid to do. But that still becomes very difficult. And the data suggests when you look at it across the league, and I don't care what year it is, if you look back at that first game back after a long road trip, it is one of the toughest games to play. And I think we saw that happen in the second half. I mean, you mentioned how Indiana against Michigan sort of looked zombie-like. I'd say the same thing happened to the Pacers last night, especially in the second half. They did enough to hang around in the first half to make it a 1-point game. But once Charlotte came out and made their move and got it to double figures at the start of the 3rd quarter, really that game was virtually over. The Pacers could never match the intensity that Charlotte had. And, I'll give Charlotte a lot of credit because they were 0-8 on the second night of a back-to-back. And maybe that played into it. Maybe James Borrego challenged them in the locker room before the game and said, hey, guys, we got to be better than this. And they're a playoff team. So, fortunately, in my role, I have not seen many of those in my 16-year career, let alone this year. I mean, most of the Pacers' losses this year have been close. So that was an oddity, and especially for it to happen at home. That's the part you don't like, for something like that to happen in front of your home fans.
Pete is asking, do they tank? Which I know the answer already, but talking about for rebuilding, getting a higher draft. I asked this question earlier, and I know they lost a coin toss to get Patrick Ewing to the Knicks. How many have they ever had a lottery pick, and if so, how many?
No, I mean, I think you got to go all. I think it's like George McLeod back in the 80s. To be what would be considered a lottery pick. I mean, if you think about it,
they're always in like the middle.
Yeah, usually around 10, like Paul George was the 10th pick. He was after Gordon Hayward. Hayward was 9 with Utah. Miles Turner was 13. I mean, they've not had a top 5 draft pick. Now, where they are right now, if the season ended today, they'd have a top 5 draft pick, and be in the lottery to see what you could do. Interesting questions. I'm sure there will be some type of changes made. That's just my opinion. What they are, I don't know. I think throughout the league, the trade deadline is 2 weeks from today. I think it's going to be a pretty active trade deadline because I think there are a lot of buyers and I think there are a lot of sellers. I've never been one to say you just tear it all the way down to the studs, because I think it's very difficult to build it all the way back up. The Pacers have never had to do that. But we'll find out what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. I'm sure I'm sure something like last night wasn't helpful, but at the same point, I mean, you didn't have Sabonis, you didn't have Turner, you didn't have Brogdon, you didn't have McConnell, you didn't have Warren. I mean, it goes on and on. You didn't have 5 of your top players last night. Still no excuse. I mean, no excuse to have a performance like you saw last night, but
it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference, but that's the NBA. Unfortunately, I think you have to flush that game. I mean, honestly, I don't know what you would get out of watching it.
That's like Indiana and Michigan. Same deal, because if they happen to meet again in the tournament, it's a whole different ball game.
And to his point, I do think Charlotte had the Pacers number this year. However, the first 3 games were all close. But let me tell you, LaMelo Ball is the real deal. I mean, that kid is uber talented. He averaged nearly a triple-double against the Pacers this year. He's a 6'7" point guard, 20 years of age. He's 20. This kid is really good. No question.
How
if there's one positive from this season, it does look like they hit on Chris Duarte. It looks like he's a little bit of a player, and he's going to be a guy that is going to be a building block going forward.
I mean, I do think the 3 rookies that they have in this draft class, I think Isaiah Jackson's going to be a nice player. And you guys saw Dwayne Washington Jr. play at Ohio State. The kid can shoot the ball. He made 7 threes the other night at New Orleans. He was undrafted. He made 2 more threes last night in the first half when the game was still close. I think he can be a nice player. So if you look at it, as Kevin just said, I think the 3 guys they got in the draft this year, I think are going to be a part of the team's future going forward. I really like Duarte. He may not be first team all rookie, but he'll definitely be second team all rookie. I think we've seen a lot from Isaiah Jackson. So I agree. I think those 3 players are nice building blocks for the future.
You hate to say it, but as bad as the season has been, the injuries and all that, has this actually been beneficial for the Pacers as far as going forward next season with the draft pick?
Yeah, I've said this all the time. You can always debate things, but when change happens, sometimes you have to take a step back to go forward. I mean, I remember this is 30 plus years ago when I joined Butler as the associate AD for marketing. It was the first year for Barry Collier, who's now the AD, who helped turn that Butler basketball program around. That first year.
So you were Barry Collier's boss at one time.
No. I wasn't his boss. That first year, I think the year before, Joe Sexton was the coach. He got fired. I think they were like 12-15. That first year, we were 6-22. And I think people were like, hey, what the heck has happened? Sometimes you have to take that step back to be able to take that step forward. And a lot of times you do see that in sports. You saw it with the Cincinnati Bengals. They won 2 games a couple of years ago with a coach that said any other franchise after last year may have fired me. Now they added Joe Burrow, right? And now here they are playing in the AFC Championship game. So it's the thing we love and hate about sports, right? When your team in the moment isn't very good, it can be an awful experience. But you really have to sort of put your mind forward and think about the hope that you have, right? I think all of sports, Ralph Lawler, the longtime voice of the LA Clippers, said, you're either selling championships or you're selling hope. And a lot of times that's what we fall into.
Yeah. What's come up next for you, my friend?
2 road games, but we'll do them in the studio Friday and Saturday. And then Saturday, I become closer to the age of 70 than closer to 60. I turned 61 on Saturday. So still feel great. Still do my CrossFit.
I was going to say, you look great. I thought they were going to say, I'm going to be 66. And I'm like going, oh, man. So I get you. Yeah. Don't look a day over 42.
Oh, thanks, Jim. That made my day. I needed that today.
I say that to all the girls. Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding. Chris, I cannot thank you enough, buddy. It is always an absolute blast, brother. Go out and have a great weekend.
All right. Win, lose, or draw. I'm always here.
Absolutely. He is the best. Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers. We're back with more. Me and Kevin Brockway, Indiana. Mike Woodson, Xavier Johnson. Got some clips and highlights. Back with that right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or just
Got the mask on now.
Well, you know,
Somebody flag you.
No, I just don't want to wave the flag, you know. Especially
I
when
actually
I'm
got my booster shot yesterday.
I'm boosted.
My arm is still feeling a little sore, but I don't have any problems.
Probably because you just, well, not to, have a violation. I feel like everybody said COVID now.
So the Maryland game is Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes, Saturday. And they don't
Saturday,
play again until the
2:30 on
following
Fox.
Saturday.
At
Yeah.
2?
Yeah, at 2:30 Fox. Yeah, and then the following week they have Illinois at noon on Saturday. That's at Assembly. So they're going to be playing a lot more Saturday games, and I think the Michigan State game is Saturday also.
Now that college football's over with, they can do that.
Yeah. We've got the AFC and the NFC title games on Sunday.
Yes.
KC, Cincinnati, and
So are we guaranteed to
Rams,
have two different teams in the Super Bowl this year? Or was Kansas City in it last year? I can't
No,
remember.
there's only going to be one team in the Super Bowl.
No, two different teams than last year.
Oh, I thought you said two
we'll have
teams in the Super
one.
I'm not a dumbass.
Yeah.
I know that, but it sounded like you were for a second.
We'll have at least one, yeah. I think Rams, Kansas City would be interesting. That'd be a very entertaining because two offensive teams. But the kids, again, that would be like the second straight year Kansas City's in the Super Bowl, and they're facing like a pretty much like a home team because
Well, they've been in the conference championship 4 years in a row.
Yeah, because of Mahomes, he's the man.
Mahomie.
Mahomes.
Mahomie. What's up,
Tyreek
Mahomie?
Hill.
All right. So
The Bills had him beat though. Couldn't finish him.
what?
Let him off the hook. What?
What?
Oh, you're talking about the Bears clip or whatever it is?
The Bears clip.
No, I was saying the
The,
Bills had Kansas City beat. Yeah.
Well, you said let him off the hook. The Dennis Green thing is what
Oh
I
yeah,
thought you
Dennis
were
Green.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, Arizona. Yeah.
Connor ass. I still never got that.
No,
I never got.
I mean, we just the Bears are what we thought they were. They're what we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in the preseason like it's bull? We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are.
All right, we're coming back.
I still don't
stop it.
understand what he was complaining about.
This segment is brought to you
He's
by
complaining about the
Bob's
question,
Burger
I
in
think,
Clarksville.
also.
Pizza, burgers, beer.
Oh, goodness.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Happy Thursday. Welcome back. Jim Coyle with you as always. Kevin Brockway from CNHI today. Flip-flop with take my mask
We
off.
just saw that. We just saw that Mike Woodson clip, rather that Dennis
Green clip. We were watching that in the break, and it just makes me laugh because I was like, what was he what was he really complaining about?
Who knows? I think they blew a game in the fourth quarter. Like they had it, you know.
Well, but didn't they have a crappy
had
team?
a meltdown like that against after the Wisconsin and the Iowa. Remember when they were up in the first half in both those games? He could have done something like that.
But
He said, Iowa won. We thought they were. We let him off the hook.
I thought that that Arizona team was not that good.
The Cardinals?
Back then with that team he had. Anyway.
Early 2000s.
Last night, Indiana has developed a 3-prong, what do you call that? A Triton, basically.
Yeah.
Which is the old IU thing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Race Thompson and Chase Jackson Davis and Xavier Johnson. Yeah. Those guys, game in, game out, are bringing it. All 3 of those guys in double figures last night. all three of those guys off to hot starts last night. Race Thompson brings it every stinking game and is just, like you said earlier, he's getting better, which is scary as hell. He's the best all-around player on that team for what he can do from top to bottom. And it's awesome. How would you compare him to Jawan Morgan right now?
Yeah. No, yeah, very similar. You know what I mean? I think Jawan was probably a little better offensively than Race is, but
you think?
I think what Race brings you is, and Race is their best post defender. That's what he gives you. He gives you the defense, and he scores around the basket, and he's getting better scoring around the basket.
I think he enjoys it. He just looks like he's really starting to enjoy the physicality of it.
Yeah, no
the
question.
Big boy. He's an NFL tight end type.
Maybe that will be his future. You never know.
That is a distinct possibility. If the NBA did not work out for him, I promise you, I'd be shocked if someone did not give him a look. When you're that athletic, his dad was a running back.
Yeah.
When you're that athletic and you've got that size, that's what Rob Gronkowski is. He's a big, gigantic, great athlete.
Yeah, but you look at the guys that have transitioned. You look at guys like Jimmy Graham. You look at guys like Antonio Gates, Mo Alley Cox. Right? Where did he play at Kent State? Right? Also, or I'm trying to remember where he played. But you have guys that have been able to transition from that position. Because you can post up. You have those post up skills, so you post up safeties and defensive backs and just catch the ball.
Well, Xavier Johnson has been just slaying defenses for the last 3 games, not just in points. He is leading this Indiana team in virtually every facet. He has cut his turnovers out. His assist to turnover ratio is 4.5 to 1.5. It's crazy. That's what you want from where he was. He's getting rebounds, but he's scoring, can get to the rim. He can create his own shot, can create for others. And now with Rob Finney's situation, biggest thing he's going to have to do is to learn to play and not foul, although he's done a good job of that lately as well. He's just been much better under control. I asked him about these last 3 games last night and what's been the change, because it's what that he wasn't doing some of these things before, but he was just erratic, Kevin. He was, one game he's good, next thing he's here. But now he's really starting to just smooth out and at a higher level. Let's hear what he had to say.
I mean, like I said, I know my level of play wasn't good at first. I just know I was in a slump, and I know I was going to come out of it, and I was just going to keep playing, keep getting better. And I know when my dad came up here, my family came up here, I needed that because, I haven't seen it for a long time. My teammates always pick me up, and we just going to keep getting better, and I'm going to just keep playing with my teammates and believe, and I'm going to keep believing in them, and I know they're going to believe in me.
Hey, sorry, I can't turn that up mid.
That's okay. One of the things he mentioned was his family coming up. Again, this is another conversation that we've heard about where these players have talked about this positive reinforcement that they're getting, whether it's from Mike Woodson or a family member that is helping these guys get through this. And I know it sounds silly and goofy sometimes, but there's a pattern to it. When there's a lot of negativity around, it can bring you down. When there's a lot of positivity, it works in the opposite direction, apparently.
Yeah, and let's not forget, these are still 18, 21-year-olds. They're going to, emotionally, they're going to go through the gamut. So it's nice to have that familiar voice, right? That, parent, father figure come up and give you a little pat on the back and say, hey, look, everything is going to be okay. We love you. And I'm sure that probably worked for Xavier. And as he goes home, maybe it'll work for him again this weekend. You never know against Maryland. But, Maryland's got 2 pretty good guards, Eric Ayala and Fats Russell, who played really well in that that Rutgers game, and they hit 12 threes at Rutgers and won that game. So I think that certainly Xavier and the rest of IU's perimeter defenders now probably minus Finney are going to have their work cut out for them. It's going to be a tough challenge. Not going to be easy sledding, and Xavier is going to have to guard without fouling and avoid those fouls.
Kevin Troy asked about update on Rob. There will not be an update on Rob until, this could be a couple of days maybe before we hear something, Kevin. When it comes to injuries, unless it's a definitive, and I'm not speculating. I've saw people say, I hope it's not an Achilles. I'm not guessing. But if it was something like that, that is an injury of sorts that you can come on out and say it, because you're not coming back from that this season.
Well, he's going to be evaluated today, according to what.
But we don't know what it is. I'm not speculating on what it is. So it's
maybe
lower leg injury.
Maybe word comes out later today, or maybe Woodson is going to do a conference call tomorrow. So a Zoom call tomorrow. So maybe we will know by today or tomorrow a little bit more on Rob's status. And certainly, you talk about a hard luck career for Rob Finney.
Just got to go on. Had the best game of his career in the Purdue game.
Yeah, and a guy that concussion as a freshman, abdominal problems as a sophomore. Earlier this season, remember he missed a couple of games. He had a sprained ankle. So yeah, he's dealt with the gamut with injuries throughout his career. And I remember even he was saying a couple of weeks ago that he still didn't feel 100%. So he's been a pretty banged up guy throughout his career, but has answered the bell, and he gives you that perimeter defense that. Listen, is going to be missed a little bit. And then, a Christian Lander situation and his leg, and if they can get him better. But here's the thing. If Lander's not available Saturday, who's and I'll probably ask Mike Woodson this, who's your backup point guard if Xavier Johnson gets a
It's got to be Trey Galloway, maybe.
Yeah. Do you put Tamar Bates there, maybe? I don't know.
I don't think so. He hasn't played that. He hasn't played with the ball in his hands much at all this season. He had a good game the other day, come in and hit shots and had a one of his better games, if not his best game. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but no, I can't see him not right now running the point for this team.
Yeah.
Ask Mike Woodson.
Running the point is interesting. You know what I mean?
Well, that's not. He just has to give Xavier some breather minutes, man. And it changes the offense a little bit, though. It's a different type of offense with Trey Galloway at the point. So I asked Mike Woodson a couple games back. It was the Michigan loss. I asked him about how they came out and played, and he said, "Well, this team is young." He said, "They don't have experience winning, man." He goes, "They don't have any experience right now, so they're not used to it, and they have to get used to it." And I asked him last night about how they responded from the Michigan game to this, and now you've got to go on the road. What are his expectations for his team to follow this up? And here's what he had to say.
Well, again, the road is what it is. We play in Maryland on the road. They're playing a lot better. I just thought yesterday's practice was a gut check practice. It was a practice that we really kind of went at it a little bit and worked on some things that I thought we needed to work on, preparing for this game. And now Penn State's behind us, and we got to get ready for Maryland, which, like I said, they're playing great, man. And you're gonna have to commit for 40. We'll put a game plan together, and we got to commit ourselves for 40 minutes to go down there and get a win. It's not gonna be easy, but we're capable of winning on the road. We proved that in Nebraska.
I agree with him, but I assure you, Lincoln is not the same as College Park.
Yeah,
but Indiana can definitely win on the road, and they can win. They can win at Maryland. Do they? I don't know. They haven't shown me to win on the road in the Big Ten. You have to do one thing. You have to play 40 minutes of basketball. When you're on the road, you have to play. You cannot take. You just can't take off. Like last night, I get. I don't even like to say I get slacking a little bit with a 30-point lead, but especially with this team, they should not be allowed to slack. Period. Because of that, get that out. You've got to get that out of your mind. Period. Because it should not be a difference between a 30-point lead and a 10-point lead in your mind.
Yeah, and
it's got to keep going.
Yeah. No, they were outscored 40-28 in the second half last night against Penn State, even though they built that 29-point lead. 8 of 16 from 3 in the second half after 1 of 10 in the first half.
Now, you say that they played so hard that they were tired. You lose Rob Finney.
Yeah, a little bit, but to me, it's like that's not an excuse. You go for the jugular there, and you especially guarding the 3-point line, because to me, that's like the only way Penn State's going to get back in it. Just make them make twos. It's a lot harder to dent into a lead than two. I just didn't understand the strategy.
That's why they couldn't catch to Michigan the other day, because Michigan was killing the 3 and Indiana couldn't catch them.
Yeah, exactly. And Penn State was probably moving the ball a little bit in the second half. Maybe a little bit better getting those open threes. But Mike said post-game, because I asked him about that, and Mike said basically that there were 4 or 5 switches in the second half that they did not execute properly on, and it's something that they're going to have to go in the film and look at. And if you you take a look at the Wisconsin game and the Iowa game, 2 games where you have big first half leads and you're unable to hold them because you let a team get going in the second half. That first 5 minutes of the second half, when you come out and you have a big lead like that, are so important. You know what I mean? You have to set the tone that, hey, look, we're not going to let you back in the game.
Has not played. I'd have to go back and look, because I can't say every game.
Yeah.
But the majority. Well, we've seen the stats. They were negative 1,000 in the first so many minutes, and plus 1,001 at the end. But it's just that mentality. Again, it doesn't. You've got to get in your mind to where it does not matter if it's 30 or 10. Forget about the score. Just play. Because I assure you, if that game was a little tighter, well, Wisconsin, all you have to say is Wisconsin. There you go. I mean, a 22-point lead should be as comfortable as you could want. But it wasn't. And that'll come back.
I watched the Wisconsin-Michigan State game, very similar. Michigan State got out to big lead in the first half. Wisconsin made a run, but Michigan State managed to right itself and hold on at the end, But it played out very similar to Indiana. The difference was Indiana couldn't close the deal, couldn't finish the deal. So I think Indiana is still a team that, if you let a team back in and you get that, you allow a team like Wisconsin to get momentum, that, a team of that level, you're in trouble a little bit. So you want to set the tone early in the second half, I think. And Indiana will get Wisconsin again here at Simon Scott in February, and they'll get Illinois. So they're going to have, more games against ranked teams. They go to Michigan State. So the schedule is going to get really tougher in February with more road games. So you want to pile up these wins as you can, and you don't want to give away games the way Indiana has.
Well, before last night, there were 11 games left in the regular season, 5 of which were at home, 6 on the road. So that means they still have 6 games remaining on the road and 4 remaining at home.
Yeah.
So,
and two of those home games are no picnic, with Illinois and Wisconsin.
None of these games are picnics. Look at Northwestern. You have to go to Northwestern, a team that they're not been fighting and scratching everybody. So everybody is
Somebody just waved behind you, by the way.
I know. I can see it just like you can. He's already gone, so I wasn't gonna wave back at. Hey, I waved back at him. I forget what I was saying now, but heck, show's almost over. Oh, we got 4 minutes left. Do we? How much time?
You were talking about Wisconsin, and you were talking about none of these games being picnics. And I agree with you to an extent, but
because there are no gimmies. Minnesota, that's a good. Indiana needs to. They have to. I talked about this yesterday. They have to find. They need a road win, another road win. They've got to pick up that loss to Michigan. And I'm like, all right, where do you find that? Northwestern is an option, but it's not going to be easy. Northwestern beat Michigan State at Michigan State. They've been knocking on other people's doors. Who was it? Illinois they played last night?
Yep. Oh, Northwestern played Michigan, and they took Michigan for the wire in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
But Michigan pulled it out 72-70.
Pete asked about Lander and Michael about Durr. Durr was a coach's decision, whatever that meant. Could have been a strategy.
He's not in the dog.
It may have been strategy, not wanting to play the 7-footer. Lander is hurt. He's injured. His leg is still. They're still dealing with the leg thing, or he would have played last night. So that's that. But Indiana's got to find out something to do, because I'm not. again, I'm not guessing, but it just doesn't seem good right now for Rob Finney, not hearing that, okay, it's not that as bad as we thought or something.
Sure. I'm looking at the Big Ten standings. Look at these teams bunched up. Indiana 6-4, Michigan 4-3, Rutgers 5-4, Iowa 4-4, Purdue 5-3. And I'd expect Purdue to take off a little bit. I think their schedule is going to lighten up a little bit, but I think that Indiana, Michigan, Rutgers, Iowa, those four right now, behind the top five, that's going to be a pretty interesting race, down to the finish, and at 6-4, you're only 2 games, actually a game and a half behind Illinois at 7-2, and you get Illinois head to head.
And how nuts is that? It's crazy, but that shows you, fans, let them promise you. Would you have been happy a year ago if someone said this? Yes, you would. What a fun day. I got to go out and get her going now, and hopefully we can bring you some great content when I get back. Kevin's been a blast as always. Look forward to back on Tuesday next week. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on the flip side. Big thanks as well to Matt Taylor, also Chris Denari as well. John, the producer, can't thank him enough as always. But the most importantly, you guys. Without you all, there's no reason for us to be here every day. We're back tomorrow to do this again, and look forward to it. I'll have some information about Jalen Hood-Schifino tonight. He plays tonight, and I'll have that to talk about as well. And we'll preview Maryland. Until tomorrow, Kevin, have a great day. The rest of you, I will see you on the radio.